are talking The Haunted House Project, also known as Deserted House, but its original title from its native country is pronounced PYEGA or something like that. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. And this is a 2010 haunted house movie shot in the found footage style. Now, I really enjoyed a Korean found footage movie called Gonjaeum Haunted Asylum. It's a fantastically scary haunted house found footage movie. So I was kind of hoping for more of the same with this one. Did it deliver? Let's discuss. But what is this story? It essentially focuses on a group of documentary filmmakers who go into this kind of abandoned factory with a couple of kind of buildings that are attached to it to do a documentary and hopefully capture something paranormal on film. And this factory has got a bit of a dark past with a number of murders there and a bit of a kind of a dark backstory. And of course, when they're there, they find these legends may well be true. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let us discuss The Haunted House Project. Okay, what do I think works in this movie? So it plays somewhat like a typical found footage movie in the kind of the grave encounter style, making a haunted house documentary and things kind of go wrong. So it's kind of very much what you'd expect from a found footage movie. So if you were a fan of that genre, and I know there are lots of you out there, then you may well want to check it out because it does kind of deliver on your tick box kind of requirements for a found footage movie, but does it elevate the material? There are a couple of things here that I thought it did pretty well. I think first and foremost, the location. Now this is, as I mentioned, a Korean movie, and the filmmakers here have found a legitimately knackered location to shoot in. This building which has had years of decay by the looks of it. Genuinely looks like it would be a very dangerous place to film in because it is so kind of wrecked, but it does kind of have a good backdrop for this kind of this haunted house, this abandoned building, because it does genuinely look like in a severe state of decay. It's quite a large property as well, so it's certainly very kind of cinematic and atmospheric for this kind of like this horror movie. One of the elements I did like about the film as well is our kind of group of filmmakers are essentially split into two groups who are actually strangers at the beginning of the movie but come to work together. So we have our kind of behind the camera talent, which is kind of the cameraman, there's this girl with a kind of a boom mic, and this producer woman. And what they do is they hire three kind of ghost hunting enthusiasts who are all part of this kind of like online group to be the kind of the on-camera talent. So we have these two kind of separate groups who are then kind of now working together, who have slightly different kind of agendas. So our kind of on-screen talent, which is these two guys and this girl, they are kind of genuinely trying and find ghosts and things like this, whilst the behind the camera crew are more trying to make an interesting documentary. And you'll see them, one of the aspects I liked from it is how you have those dramatization kind of bits in documentaries. They actually try and film some of them as part of the film. So you'll see them kind of go right into that room and kind of look around and things like that. So it kind of gives it this feel that they are you are seeing kind of a behind the scenes feel of a kind of a documentary, including the kind of the making of all the dramatization bits that you kind of often see in real kind of documentaries, which I thought was kind of a good inclusion. Now, the actual supernatural stuff is pretty limited to the last 20 minutes of the movie. But there are a couple of sequences in that I thought did work quite well. I say a couple, I literally mean two, but nonetheless they're physically quite disturbing in some ways, albeit it's nothing you haven't seen before, to be honest. But there are a couple of, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there are a couple of good bits that you'll see on screen. So what doesn't work in this movie? Okay, so the main critique I think with this one is that it's an hour and 20-minute movie, but the first hour is very much treading water. It's just these people tromping around this kind of building, and there's some mild supernatural stuff that kind of happens, like a mirror breaks and things like that, but there's not a lot. And then it kind of saves all of the sort of dangerous kind of supernatural stuff for the kind of the last sort of 20 minutes. And I think because of that, it becomes a little dull at times. So, you know, you really have to just wait for an hour until we get that literally probably about the hour mark, and before it becomes anything remotely really resembling kind of a horror film, to be honest. I think it's just a little bit too little too late, unfortunately. I think the acting is fine, but I don't think it's, you know, anything to write home about either. I think there are some sort of sequences where it looks a little bit kind of too staged at times, and you can often kind of have this critique with many found footage films about why people are filming. And one of our production crew is this cameraman who you really don't see on camera, apart from you see the back of his head once. But there are sequences with him where he's kind of like, something bad will happen. This is all in the last 20 minutes. Something bad will happen, and but he's kind of still obviously kind of, you know, filming what's kind of happening. It almost one point looks like he's kind of running backwards and filming behind him. I'm thinking, you know, again, it's that suspension of disbelief. This is the problem with found footage. You can kind of do things on the cheap, but you have to have that kind of suspension of disbelief and kind of have realistic reasons why people are filming, and kind of the style of their filming as well. It's like, you know, I mean, admittedly there are some bits here where you're looking at people's feet. This might not be particularly the most visually interesting, but it's somewhat realistic. But there are circumstances where I feel like this guy would have just dropped the camera, or at the very least, if he's still hanging on to it, he would just be kind of like, you know, running, and you would see the kind of the camera doing that sort of motion, really. I don't think there's anything visually too interesting in regards to the kind of the supernatural stuff. Like I said, there are a couple of interesting things that our characters end up kind of doing that are kind of to do with the supernatural, but I never really felt like we kind of get to see a hell of a lot, or there's nothing really genuinely kind of like shocking or kind of scary. And at times it becomes, I mean, we have this kind of backstory. It's, you know, it's a typical kind of Blair Witch kind of set up, interviews with the locals and things like that. And, you know, there's meant to be this, there's like a pond outside, essentially like a crater that's just filled with water that's apparently got a body in it. And they tried to, you know, excavate it once, and someone got killed whilst doing it, so they just left it. And I'm thinking, come on, you know, are you meant to believe that, you know? So yeah, I mean, it ends up being an okay found footage movie. I don't think it's anything to write home about. It's certainly you know, watchable. It's relatively kind of well made. I like the kind of I said that the strongest point is the kind of the location shooting here. The cast aren't bad. I quite like the dynamic between them, but it's nothing really you haven't seen it before. But the main critique here is it just left everything until the last 20 minutes when it should have been kind of like a bit more peppered throughout the movie to kind of like keep your interest a little bit more engaged. Because when you're getting to that point, it was like, this is becoming a struggle now. I'm really kind of like, it's just a bunch of people walking in a dark building for an hour, and it's just like, ugh, you know, it takes a while to kind of arrive, and when you do arrive, it's kind of over too quick. So for me, it's a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.